Today we are doing our post-free agency power rankings. I'm going to give you some honorable mentions first, and then we are going to dive right into our top 10 teams of the NFL season, even though it's way too early. If you think your team should be top 10, go hit that like button down below because your team deserves to be recognized. And also it helps my video be pushed in the algorithm. All right, let's begin. For the honorable mentions, we are going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. Not because they're anywhere near the top 10, but because this is probably my only opportunity to mention the Cowboys in my power rankings for the rest of 2025 without it being a really big deal. So yeah, they're probably not going to be very good this year, but this is the only time I'll bring them up for the rest of the season, unless they actually find their way to be in the top 10, but I highly doubt that. Another honorable mention that we have is the San Francisco 49ers, and this is because I don't think their roster is necessarily top 10 in the league right now, but their schedule is so easy. It's literally a cakewalk this year. They play the two worst divisions in football, and they also play a fourth place schedule because they were the fourth place team in their division. It is atrocious. So just because of that, I think they might actually be competitive and have a pretty good record this year, and we'll see where that goes. And the last honorable mention that I have is the Cincinnati Bengals, because that offense is just hard not to bring up right now. The defense, we will see. They didn't really make a big splash in free agency. I'm assuming they're going to try to do that in the draft, but they have to fix that defense. But they still have Joe Burrow. They re-signed Jamar Chase. They re-signed T. Higgins. They gotta fill those holes on defense, and we'll see if they can do that. Okay, let's start with number 10. And at 10, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm already wondering if I have them too low. I think every single team on this top 10 is good, so I'm not going to overthink it, but I do really like this Bucs team. I think they're pretty loaded. They got Bucky Irving coming back after a great year last year. Baker is cooking. Godwin's coming back. Mike Evans is always there, and they signed Hassan Reddick in the offseason. Last year, they lost to Washington in a really close playoff game, but Washington was really good last year, and I think they're still really good this year, but the Bucs are up there, and their division's really bad, so I think that they're going to be really competitive again this year. And I've said it multiple times, but I'm just really happy for Baker and Mike Evans. I like this team a lot. I think it's a very likable team. Then at number 9, we have the Minnesota Vikings. I know Minnesota lost Sam Darnold, their starting quarterback, so how are they still number 9? Listen, if you watched any of my videos last year, you would know I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold believer. I think Minnesota has a really good roster. I think Kevin O'Connell is a really good coach. He might be a quarterback whisperer, and I think Sam Darnold was just put in a really good position. And ultimately, when the lights got bright and things started to really matter, he folded. I think plugging JJ McCarthy into this situation is extremely exciting, and if I was a Vikings fan, I would be stoked for multiple reasons. One being JJ, if he's good, that's obviously important, but he's going to be on a rookie contract, so they can spend money everywhere else on the team. And when we've had guys like Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud all come in and be star quarterbacks, I don't know if Bo's a star, but a really good quarterback right away, I think it's giving people a lot of hope that the same thing could potentially happen to JJ McCarthy. And it doesn't hurt that he has the best wide receiver in football to throw the ball to. At number 8, we have the Los Angeles Rams. I really like this Rams team. Stafford is coming back. I know there were questions on if he was actually going to be back or not. He is. They signed Devontae Adams after they lost Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua is back, obviously. Kyron Williams is coming off a really good year. And listen, dude, in that Eagles game, I feel like if the weather was good, I really thought that Rams team was going to beat Philly in the playoffs. They were very close, and I think the weather messed with them, which is, I mean, that's why you get home field advantage. So it's nothing to like discredit the Eagles, but the Rams were right there, and they played them very well, and I think they still have a really good team. And I love Sean McVay. I think they're still really good. Then at number 7, we have the Washington Commanders. The Commanders surprised everybody last year. Jaden Daniels turned into a legitimate star quarterback in his rookie season. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game in his very first year. In the offseason, they added Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil, Javon Kinlaw. They are clearly stacking up to make another push next year. I think they have 100% faith in Jaden Daniels, as they should, and they are fully expecting to be in the mix again. If Jaden takes even a small step forward this year, as long as he doesn't have a step back, like it seemed like CJ might have had, I know that team had a lot of injuries, but it does seem like CJ took a tiny step back in his sophomore season. I think if Jaden can either stay the same or get even a little bit better, that team is going to be very, very dangerous this year. Then at number 6, we have the Denver Broncos. Denver is another team trying to do all that they can to take advantage of this rookie quarterback who seems to be really good on a rookie contract. This is such a great window for teams where they're not spending $250 million on a quarterback and they can use their money elsewhere. They added tight end Evan Ingram. They got Dre Greenlaw. They got Ufunga. Their defense is going to be really, really good again. I think that's super helpful because unlike the Commanders, the Commanders defense is solid, but the Broncos defense was already good last year and now it's going to be even better. And I think that that takes a lot of pressure off Bo Nix. I think that's part of the reason why he had so much success last year. I like this Broncos team a lot. I think they're going to be really, really good. Then at number 5, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and now they're coming off a really tough Super Bowl loss to the Eagles, but they did get to the Super Bowl. I think that Mahomes is obviously one of the greatest quarterback talents we've ever had. So as long as he's here and he's healthy, they're going to be in the mix. They're going to be towards the top of the league. They're going to have Rashee Rice back from injury. They're going to have Xavier Worthy hopefully getting even a little bit better. My concerns are still that they didn't add anybody really offensively. Travis Kelce is 1 year older. They lost DeAndre Hopkins, and they still don't have like a bona fide number 1 option. I think that Rashee Rice or Xavier Worthy could be that guy. They just haven't stepped into that role yet. Also, my concern is they played with their food a lot last year. They were in a lot of close games, which is why everyone doubted them pretty much all season, but all those games fell in their favor. My concern is that if those don't fall in their favor this year, they could be in a much different position when playoff time comes around. Again, this sounds mostly negative, but they're still the Chiefs and they still have Mahomes, and I just think they'll probably somehow figure it out, but I am curious what they do in this upcoming draft. Then at 4, we have the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is just, it seems like cursed by Kansas City right now. They just cannot get past them in the postseason, but Josh Allen in my eyes right now is probably the best quarterback in football. When you look at their roster, I just don't think he's playing with weapons of the same caliber that Mahomes has, Lamar has, Jalen Hurts has, and he's having still incredible success. He's not playing with Derrick Henry. He's not playing with AJ Brown. He's not playing with Jamar Chase like Joe Burrow is. Like he doesn't have these guys like the rest of these elite quarterbacks have. And he's still reigning MVP. I think this team is going to be really good still. Josh Allen's still going to be good. I think they're going to have a great season. I am curious when postseason comes around what they do. I think they might be missing one piece still, but we'll see where that goes. I think they're obviously a top 4 team in the league right now. Then at number 3, we have the Detroit Lions. Last year was obviously just an extremely disappointing season for the Lions after a really great start. They were struggling with a lot of injuries, primarily on defense, including, probably their best defensive player, Aiden Hutchinson. And the playoff loss to Washington, it was ugly. And it's definitely not the way you want to go out, but I just feel like the fans know, the players know, the organization knows they were playing pretty shorthanded. I think if they can get healthy, they're going to be right back in the mix, and they're going to be a really, really good football team this year. Then at number 2, we have the Baltimore Ravens. I really liked this Ravens team last year, and obviously I still really like them this year. This team, they have the pieces they need right now. However, their secondary was really bad last year, really bad, and they didn't do a lot to improve that with free agency. I'm hoping that they do something about that in the draft, because that's a hole that needs to be patched. But Zay Flowers missed the playoffs last year, and they were a Mark Andrews drop pass away from going to overtime against Buffalo in the playoffs and putting themselves in a position to go to the AFC Championship. They have Derrick Henry, who played at an elite level last year. Lamar Jackson was runner-up for MVP. They also signed DeAndre Hopkins, and I honestly just feel like this team is loaded on offense, and as long as they can figure out what they need to figure out with the secondary, the run defense was incredible last year. It was just the pass defense they struggled with. If they can find a way to get around that, I don't know why, I feel like this is the Ravens' year. I just do. And then at number 1, obviously we have the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. It's hard to really say anything negative about the Eagles right now after the Super Bowl wasn't even close. And Saquon had one of the best rushing seasons of all time. Now, they definitely did lose some guys. They lost Darius Slay. They lost Josh Sweat. They lost Isaiah Rodgers, Kenneth Gainwell. They lost players for sure, as most Super Bowl winning teams do. But as long as they have Saquon, Jalen, AJ Brown, that offensive line, they looked so good last year. It's going to have to be one of those things where you just have to give them the benefit of the doubt, and until they prove us wrong and look worse, I'm going to just keep them at the top right now. They're defending Super Bowl champions. They did it in a pretty dominant fashion, and they just deserve this spot until further notice, even though I actually feel like vomiting saying that out loud. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was way too early, so this is not like set in stone. We'll see what happens. We're going to do a post-draft power rankings as well. So if you want to see that, subscribe. Also, if you want to see who my favorite player is on your team or why I love and or hate your team, go check out my recent videos. Please subscribe for future ones, and I will see you guys in the next one.